Hi, I'm Carrie. Today I'm going to talk about spring decks, but I'm going to put a little bit of a twist on it, I guess. Last year I did a video showcasing decks in my collection that felt like spring. And I see a lot of videos coming out right now, especially over the past 2 weeks since we passed the spring equinox, about decks in your collections that look like spring. But I'm going to show deck pairs that carry a spring energy for me. And I'd like to make this into a hashtag, so I hope somebody plays along with me doing this. And I'm going to call it hashtag spring deck pairs. And the idea is pairing up Oracle and Tarot, Tarot and Tarot. I don't care what decks you put together, but it's some sort of pair that carries a certain type of spring energy or works together well for you during the spring season, or whatever twist you want to put on it yourself, and how it works for you, how those two decks work for you together during the spring season. So that's what I've done for today's video. Is I've put together, I think I have 6 different deck pairings that have this spring energy and why they have a spring energy for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and if you want to play along too, don't forget to use hashtag spring deck pairs and tag me in the video so I can come and see it. So my first spring deck pairing is the Bee Tarot by Christopher Hughes and Nadia Turner, and Unlocking the Secret Garden, which is by Angie Sullins and artwork by Jenna Della Grottaglia. I've already used this pairing together. I did several readings for clients with this pairing, and I absolutely love it. This feels like spring for me. When I think of spring, I think of life reemerging. I think of flowers beginning to bloom, and you can't have flowers blooming without the bees. So as the bees emerge and pollinate and feed off the flowers, things begin to bud and life springs back. And for me, spring is all about that reemergence of life, especially because I suffer mildly from that seasonal affective disorder. So wintertime really brings me down. And whenever we move into those longer days, those longer stretches of daylight, and the sun is shining a little brighter and there's less gray out there, it helps me see everything outside of myself coming back into life. The grass is starting to green. The trees are starting to get little buds on them. And that's what I feel these two decks do together. They give that representation of the outside world springing back to life, especially the Bee Tarot. And I love it paired with this oracle. The readings that I did with it were I felt spot on. The 8 of Wands become, and the 9 of Wands. And it's interesting how these wands are being directed out that way. So I would see the energy actually flowing from these cards from here over to here, instead of left to right. And I just love the way these two speak together. 7 of Swords, curiosity and rebirth. And they just feel like spring in a deck, and puts me in the mood to get back out there into nature and reground myself into nature. So this is the first pairing I have. So the next 2 decks that I'm going to show that bring forward that energy of spring, that speaks to that same reemergence energy that I talked about between the Bee Tarot and the Unlocking the Secret Garden comes from these two decks. And this is the Tarot of Persephone, which is an independent deck that I bought on Etsy from, is it Kara Small? I think that's her last name. And the Oracle is the Divine Nature Oracle, another Angie Sullivan's deck, but artwork is by Greg Spolenka. And where the other deck, I talked about that reemergence of life outside. These two decks together bring forward that reemergence energy within myself, that awakening, that reawakening energy within myself as we move through this spring season. And the coloring of these are slightly darker. They're not quite as bright and vibrant or pastel as some of the other pairings that I'm going to show. Both of these decks for me carry that awakening energy. Like I said, that reawakening of me inside. That's how I feel about this energy. Persephone comes back, it's springtime, to reunite with her mother. Is it Demeter, I believe? And comes up and out of the underworld. That reemergence from darkness, like winter into spring. And I love that story. And that's exactly the energy that these two decks hold. Unmask Your Darkness, The Sun, and Twirl, I think says it all about the pairing of these two decks together. And this would be the pair that I would go to help me reawaken that inner self, the one that was in hibernation during the month of winter, the one that was going through heavy possible transitions or reflections about things in my life, and going to these two decks to see what I need to work on now, where my focus needs to be, what is reawakening inside of me through this spring season that I could turn my focus towards. I think they work beautifully together. I think the coloring is beautiful with one another, and it's just, I don't know, it's almost like a chef's kiss, the two of these. We got Answer the Call, Death, and Alchemize here, and I just think that almost like these two decks were just made to work together. Remember Who You Are, The Threads of Fate, and Embody Grace. I really do love this pairing, and I'm excited to work with it more. The next spring deck pairing that I chose is the Mass Market Unfolding Path Tarot by Athene Noctua and the Botanical Dreams Oracle by Lynn Araujo, and Katrin White-Stein. I probably pronounced that one name wrong, and I apologize for that. I already talked about this deck and how I feel about the card titles and not keywords. So I am going to be altering a few of the cards on this deck. But the reason I picked this pairing is, first of all, I do love this deck. I love the energy of this deck. I feel like it is spring in a deck. And the reason I paired it with the Unfolding Path is the Unfolding Path gives me that room to breathe. And maybe that sounds a bit ridiculous, but I feel that energy, which I believe I've said on my channel before, with this deck and the way that the borders are. None of the borders are solid. None of them are like a solid square or rectangle, oval. Nothing is solid. Each border is abstract and different for each card. Some borders take up more space than the other borders do. And there's something about that, with that abstractness around those borders, that gives you just this much room of breathing room in these cards. compared to this deck, which is a full picture, end to end of an image. So by pairing these two together, you would have maybe the little bit of a heaviness to this card or the energy from this card. And this is, I don't want to say the lighter perspective, because that's not what tarot is, but maybe the perspective that gives you that breath, gives you that moment to breathe when you think about the warrior or you think about knowledge. And this is just that these cards, the way they are, gives you that second to, okay, take a breath now. And now let's go to the meanings and put the structure of the reading together. And when I say that, I'm thinking, where is this coming from? But honestly, that's what I think about when I kind of pair these types of decks together with one another, where one is heavily illustrated and the other one isn't. And there's just that slight moment, that slight pause in between the imagery that gives you that space to take that deep breath, pause, and then go into the reading. And that's just what I feel. And that's what spring is. It's taking that moment to pause, coming out of that reflection, and fully filling your lungs with fresh air. That's what I feel. Spring is filling your lungs with fresh air, and this kind of gives me that type of energy. So for that reason, I think they work beautifully with one another. And then we get the card like Windflower, that I'm trying to rectify myself with the back and forth of this deck, where we have self-acceptance, but then we have Windflower. So, but that can be easily rectified on, my part. But yeah, that's why I chose to pair these two decks up together. And even though the imagery is different in these two decks, I think they work seamlessly with one another. And I think it's because of that breathing space that you have around the edge of the Unfolding Path tarot. This is one of my favorite tarots. I really do love it. I love the way it reads. I love the way it speaks to me. I love the characters on the card and what they bring into the readings. I love everything about that tarot. So this is an absolute beautiful pairing together. So my next spring deck pairing is one of a witchy nature, because I cannot come into this season without having some sort of witchy decks to turn to use. And that is the pairing of Tarot of the Witch's Garden by Sasha Graham, and the other name I'm drawing a blank on right now. And the Green Witches Oracle deck, which is by Erin Murphy Hiscock and Sarah Richard. This has the same vibe to it that I just talked about with the Unfolding Path pairing, except it's our Oracle deck that gives that space. The Tarot of the Witch's Garden literally has my heart. I talked about this deck when I did my shelf tour, and I did my witchy deck shelf. And I talked about this deck has that spring and summer vibe to it. And it's the time of the year that I like to pull this out and use it. There's so much greenery here. This is another deck that brings you back into that energy of like coming back to life, like I talked about with the Bee Tarot. And this one is newer to my collection. And I am loving this oracle so much. It's only a couple years old. It's put out by Simon & Schuster, I believe, and it has become one of my absolute go-to favorite oracles. Not only does it pair with everything, but you've got the key word, and then you've got 3 additional words or energies to go along with that card. So it's not just, stuck into like one meaning. And so this works lovely in the same type concept that gives you that breathing room, that tells you, may say mushroom, recycling, breaking down problems. And then we've got the Queen of Wands and the Emperor here. And I would actually feel with this about, are the mushrooms something that is poisonous? Are these mushrooms something that could be edible? Or, thinking along those lines when I'm looking at this card, looking at this image, and thinking about what the keywords are, and then my tarot beside it. And I just think, because this is heavily, I feel, based in not just witchy, but the seasons and nature, that it's a good one to use during this time. It's a good one to use all year long, but especially during this time of the year. Broom, energy clearing, freshening. And isn't that what we're doing in the spring, is we're freshening, refreshening our energy, bringing ourselves, like I said, back to life, and planting new seeds and finding new things to focus on, and moving past that heavy, dark energy of, winter, which I've said now for multiple decks. So we have 7 of Cups, Summer, and 2 of Cups. That's interesting that Cups are on both sides here. But this is such a beautiful pairing. This is one, along with the Tarot of Persephone and the Divine Nature Oracle, that I want to pair together. This is one I am so super excited about using for myself, and seeing how these 2 decks work together and what they can reveal to me through maybe spring and summer season, because like I said, this feels both. And this one may be a pairing that I come to actually later in the spring, as we are coming up to the transition into summer, since I said that this also feels like a spring summer deck. So I may hold off and wait for this one towards later in the season, so it can move me into that summer energy also. I think that this pairing is a fantastic one for, like I said, all season long, spring, summer, whatever, but it just feels like that type of energy. So my next spring deck pairing, I can't think of spring without thinking of fairies for some reason. I don't know why. I know that they are not limited to the season of spring, but when I think of fairies, I think of nature. When I think of nature and budding, I think of spring, and there's my connection. Is it right? I don't know, but there's my connection to Fae energy, I guess, which I've never really worked with. And the Oracle deck that I'm pairing with this tarot, which this is the Mystical Fairy Tarot, which I forgot to say. The Oracle that I'm pairing with it is the Inner Child Oracle by Amanda Lynn Aisling. And the thing about this pairing is, if you just wanted to use it for that spring aesthetic, because this just screams spring energy to me, and this has many, many, many cards in it that have that spring vibe to it. So if you just want to use it for that spring renewal, that aesthetic vibe, there's one reason to use it. But another reason I thought about pairing these together, and I am not one big on inner child work. I'm just going to state that. I've really never even done inner child work. But when I started doing shadow work, it came up and out of the blue. Not like I had planned and set forward to do it. It just appeared for me. So I figured inner child work will appear for me in the same manner. But if you were going to do inner child work, I think these 2 decks would work beautifully together, especially if it's something that you want to dive into during this time of the year. This has that little bit of that whimsical vibe to it with these fairies and everything. And in the guidebook, there is a section that gives you a journaling prompt and sort of exercise too that goes along with each one of these cards. Now, personally, I've not worked with the guidebook when it comes to this oracle. When I've used this oracle, I have just done readings with it, just on its own, like it's any other general oracle. But if you did want to dive into inner child and into that sort of energy and look at the journal prompts regarding inner child or the self exercises that they have, then this, I think, would work very well together to use this mystical fairies with this deck because of not just the aesthetics, but I think the energy of both of them also. You have the Five of Cups, set boundaries, and the Three of Swords. Tell me that is not perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Sitting in that Three of Swords energy, grieving terribly over this pain that you have. So set your boundaries. When I was playing around with pairs, playing around doing some very short mini readings with these decks together to see how they would work together, because this is a pairing that I have not used together yet, like to read for others or anything, but just in the mini readings that I did, it just spoke so lovely to one another. Six of Cups, a time to remember. Well, isn't that what the Six of Cups is all about? Look back on your childhood. Again, isn't that what the Six of Cups is about? And then we have the Seven of Wands over here. So, where's your struggle at? Who is maybe pointing fingers at you or something along those lines? Knight of Swords, and speak to yourself with kindness. Because I think sometimes the Knight of Swords isn't kind when he speaks. And then you have the Knight or the Knave of Cups over here. So the Page of Cups over here, which is all about that innocence and sweetness. So it just works lovely together. The Moon, emotions are the reflection. Look for the deeper meaning. And the King of Cups. It almost gives me chills the way these two decks speak to one another. And when something like that works, even in just for demonstration purposes, when you're going through a deck like that and it's speaking like that with the three cards right there on the table, that says something to me. That tells me how well these two would work in a full-blown reading with one another. So I think this is a great pairing if you wanted to pair something with this fairy deck. If you wanted to do inner child work and use these two decks together, I think this is a beautiful pairing for spring. So the last two decks that I am going to pair together for that spring vibe energy is the Calandra Tarot by Michael Calandra and the and the Ancient Stones Oracle by Rebecca Campbell and Katie Louise. The reason I decided to pair these two is because I wanted to use the Ancient Stones as a spring deck. Now, her decks could be used whenever, but when I was thinking of spring energy, I was thinking of that regrounding into nature, that regrounding into Mother Earth energy. And she talks about her stones holding that sacred energy of the earth, but also being a portal to reach back in time to connect to the ancients and that energy. And like I said, spring, as the days start to become warmer, I want to be outside. I want to be reconnecting with nature in some way. And I picked the Calandra Tarot just for the coloring of the deck alone, because a tarot is a tarot, but this was like another option in case flowers weren't your vibe, or goddess decks weren't your vibe, or like the bee tarot wasn't your vibe. This is that fantasy art. And I thought, what better pairing than this ancient energy, these portals of back in time, of these stones, and fantasy together. So that's why I paired these. And look at the very first one. You've got alignment. It's coming together, precision, with the Five of Cups and the Hangman, and just the coloring alone. And this is another one that I was playing around with, just getting to know the two decks, doing some mock little mini readings before I decided to film this. And I could not believe how well they spoke to one another, because I have not worked with either deck really at all. The Calandra Tarot is new. It came in at the end of last year. I have not worked with it. And the Ancient Stones Tarot, I've maybe pulled a card here or there with it. But I wanted something that I could pair together to bring me into that grounded energy, but yet bring forward like that fantasy. When I think of Ancient Stones, I think of Outlander. I think of the book series and the show series Outlander, and that traveling through those portals, you know, Claire back in time, etc. So I just thought that this was a good pairing. And like I said, I wanted to give a different option for a pairing that wasn't just floral in nature either, especially if that's not someone's aesthetic or the energy like that they like to work with. So we have the Two of Pentacles, pave your own way, and the Four of Swords, leadership, courage, forge, don't follow. Six of Cups, remember why you came. And we have the Seven of Pentacles, be bold, and then the legacy. So I do think that these work very well. Seven of Cups, ancestral message, connection, belonging, ask for help, and the Five of Swords, especially if someone has really like knocked you for a loop with that Five of Swords energy, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to handle it or how to go about it. Ask for help. Find where you belong, connect to those people, and ask, you know, for that type of help. I think that's just such a beautiful message. Releasing the past with justice, and the Ace of Swords. I cannot wait to work with this pair together. See how they speak with one another. Two of Swords, be the mountain, slow and steady. Foundations, patience. And the Nine of Wands. And this is like another one that just doing this, demonstrating how they look together, how they would speak to one another, says a lot when the three cards on the table have a very cohesive message between the images. Wheel of Fortune, hidden treasure, you're on the right track, and the Ten of Swords. So don't give up now. If you're on the right track, this isn't the time to, you know, wallow, give up, you know, think that things aren't working in your favor. So this is another, I feel, powerful pairing. So tell me what your favorite pairing was from these spring decks, and I hope you choose to participate, play along, join in on this tag in one way or another. I didn't want to put any prompts to it. I wanted people to be able to choose decks that they felt worked best together for this season. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you do want to see more from me. And until I see you next time, bye.